I sent you an email earlier today addressing my concerns about the development of Camarillo Springs Golf Course. A realtor friend told me that during a meeting at the Boys and Girls Club, a representative from the developer told them approval of the flood plans by FEMA was imminent. Once approved, they planned to break ground. The woman also indicated the EIR is done, which surprised me. I previously pointed out the county expects you to protect the wildlife corridor that runs through Camarillo Springs Golf Course. If you allow them to build the homes and create berms along Ridgeview, that will block access from Canal Mountain and the western Santa Monica Mountains to Canal Creek, forcing them onto the residential streets. If staff is working with NUI behind the scenes and giving them the impression that they will be allowed to develop the golf course, then your power is being taken away. There is a process in place to ensure the public is heard and you consider all sides of the issues before making your decisions. Enforce that process. If city council members are meeting with NUI or the representatives behind closed doors or outside an open council meeting, then you're violating the trust of the people. The council approved the referral with conditions, and so far those conditions have not been met. 1, NUI has not provided any data addressing the viability of anything less than 18 holes for a golf course. 2, NUI has not provided information during a council meeting showing plans to address the floodplain issue. As you all will remember, I pointed out that the modeling they did was invalid since they did not use actual data. Based on the lack of the requested data, the referral should be rescinded, and they need to provide detailed, quantifiable data as to why the city should even consider rezoning the golf course to allow homes. There are so many reasons why it should not be developed. Traffic, potential dispersal of carcinogens into the air when they're grading, and impacts to wildlife and protected species, for example, Canadian geese and mountain lions. Richard's bought a golf course, and he does not have a right to do anything other than keep it a golf course. He has done nasty things in other communities to force cities to cave into his demands. Don't fall for it, or you will be cleaning up his mess. I went to the Camarillo Ranch Foundation meeting last night. It was business as usual. No discussion on how to get out of the red. They seemed to be in denial. They were given a summary of the proposed budget for next year. Only the Finance Committee sees the details for each item in the summary. They're expecting less weddings next year. They have done nothing to find out if their charges are reasonable based on other venues. How can a board pass a budget if they don't understand the basis for the budget? Mr. Devlin was rude to Mrs. Craven when she was trying to point out he was incorrect on an item. They voted to be closed on Tuesdays unless a school tour is scheduled because their staff is spread thin, and agreed the city does not need to approve it. They had a retreat in the Camarillo house and left a mess in the kitchen. Like anyone else using the house, they need to clean up their mess. As such, tours the next day had to bypass the kitchen. They're still using future wedding deposits for existing expenses, which is just a Ponzi scheme. No plans to fix problems and make things better. The CRF needs to be abolished immediately.
Excuse me. Could I ask you, I'm sorry, could I ask you to read your very first sentence?
For which one?
For the first thing you said when you got up, starting with 3 minutes.
I sent you an email earlier today addressing my concerns about the development of Camarillo Springs Golf Course.
Next
and I went into detail what I'd heard.
One more sentence.
A realtor friend told me that during a meeting at the Boys and Girls Club, a representative from the developer told them approval of the flood plans by FEMA was imminent.
I guess that was the third one. I'm trying to get a question, but I'm trying to find out what you said.
Okay.
I want exactly what you said.
Once approved, they plan to break ground.
Okay.
I know that's not true.
I have a question for staff based on what you said, because I wasn't at a Boys and Girls Club meeting, so I'm going by what you said.
They're caravans that they do.
Okay. What is going to happen? They're doing the EIR, and then it comes back to us before anything is done. Is that true? Is that the process, I guess is what I should be saying?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's going to come back to the city council before any action is going to be taken out there?
Before any entitlements could ever be approved, they would have to have a certified EIR.
Thank you.
And that must be reviewed by the city council,
Okay,
correct?
thank you.
You want to follow up on?
Yeah, I want to follow up. And I think I'm entitled to ask a question of the staff in terms of what is the status of any, if anything, or what is your knowledge as to the status of any approval of flood plans by FEMA?
So we do know that NUI has submitted a request for a conditional letter of map revision, a CLOMAR, they're in the Clomar process with a submittal to FEMA. And that is based on their hydrology and hydraulic calculations and review, which has included a review that's still in process with Watershed Protection District. So the ultimate approval of doing anything out there that affects the flood zone has to come from FEMA. So they are moving forward with that initial process of their hydrology, hydraulic studies, and submitting that information for review.
Well, just as a brief follow-up question, do we have any sense of what the timing of that is in terms of the conditional LOMR?
No.
Yeah.
FEMA does have review requirements when a submittal comes in within 90 days, and typically it takes 89 and a half to 90 days to get a response out of FEMA on that, and often it's for additional response and required. So the process through FEMA is typically not speedy.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Okay, Matt Lorimer. 3 minutes, please.
Let the record reflect that I've given City Council, the City Attorney, City Manager, and the City Clerk a copy of the Camarillo Ranch agenda and also a document from Business Review, Martin Chun. You know, before I begin, let me just say this. A role of a councilman is to make policymakers, set goals, community relations, and you know something? Whether you have friends on the ranch board, it's tough to make decisions, but they need to be made. I'm going to give you my experience yesterday. In front of you, you do have the agenda. So, you know Mr. Charles Devon, he's the one that showed up at the ad hoc committee, and when he was asked how many employees, I don't know. How much money and preservation costs, I don't know. So, that being said, when you go to a meeting and he looks at you, and I was the person, and if we have people, my mother told me, that's what he said, quote, you know, when people wear hats and they come to meetings and they don't know what they're talking about, you know, that's a swipe at me. I don't appreciate it. And you know something? His conduct as president is unacceptable. The next thing I want to talk about, the city had an attorney there, Kane, talking about the Brown Act. It's not listed on the documentation as you see. Also, you're going to read public comments regarding items not on the agenda. Question. So let's go to item A, where it says unfinished business. And it says here, addition to modifications to the bylaws approved by City Council. Mr. Devon, this is the third time he's been disrespectful to a councilman, Ms. Craven. I'm going to tell you something. The first time was when I went, why are you talking to the Acorn? What are you guys doing? Sean, you, what are you guys doing? Okay. The next time, Ms. Craven wasn't there. They referred to her as Lazy Craven. I don't appreciate it. The third time I showed this meeting, she asked a question and he got belligerent and talked to her like a 2-year-old. You know something? This is supposed to be an educational bound. I don't like it. It's disrespectful. It's been going on too long. This board is out of control. Regarding to the closed public session, do you know that they're closing the ranch on Tuesdays? No public input. How does that work? This is a city-owned property. The public paid for it, and now this board has decided this is the same board that doesn't pay rent, it's lost $500,000, and continues to be rogue. It's time to shut it down. Okay? You have responsibility. I don't see anything good going to go on. You got to hold people accountable. And by the way, here's Martin Shun. 2 years ago, he did a presentation. You have a sheet there. It's not the same stuff, but he presented it, and he said, hey, we need to do some changes. You know, after the meeting, they said, hey, Martin, thanks for sharing with us. You know, you did that 2 years ago. Discount him. He's a good guy. He's in the wrong team because they don't care. They've shown no progress. Nothing on this report says they can figure out, have a game plan or nothing. It's about time you hold people accountable. Close it down, find another nonprofit. They need to pay rent. You need to have rules.